Hi everyone, and welcome to week 3 of the Tik-A Tee Method. My name is Ron Castonguay, longtime educator, composer, author, conductor, clinician, and performer. I'm so glad you're here joining us as we dive into 16th notes this week. Again, another exciting week. So let's not waste any time. Let's go do this. Okay, here we are in week 3, or chapter 3 from my book. We're talking all about 16th notes and how they divide one quarter note into 4 equal parts. But before we get into that, let's recap what we learned in week 2. We remember that 4/4 time, or common time, means 4 beats in the measure and the quarter note gets the beat. So a full measure of quarter notes in common time or 4/4 time would sound like this. Ta, 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 bar line, next measure. We also learned that you can have up to 8 eighth notes in a single measure in 4/4 time, and they would sound like this. T, 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 bar line, next measure. So what we did to get our paired eighth notes, or our 2 eighth notes, is we divided one quarter note into 2 equal parts. Well, what if we divided our quarter note into 4 equal parts? This would give us 16th notes, and this is what they sound like. Tik-A, 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 tik-A. So we divide one quarter note into 4 equal parts, gives us 16th notes, and in the Tik-A Tee method, the verbiage we use is Tik-A Tik-A. Now, the T and the K consonants are very important because they're plosive, percussive consonants that help students subdivide and compartmentalize those 4 equal 16th notes into the one beat. They can accent, for example, the downbeats. Tik-A, 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 which helps us keep time. It can also accent the upbeats using the same T consonant. Tik-A, 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 which is very helpful. So we just have Tik-A, Tik-A. Now, if we're looking at one of the other rhythm systems, like the counting method, we have 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. There's just too many syllables there, 1E and a. Just too much. It's not simplistic enough for students, especially at faster tempos, to subdivide. So we have 4 syllables there, whereas in the Tik-A Tee method, we have Tik-A, Tik-A. Okay? The Takadimi method. Takadimi, 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 takadimi. Same concept applies. We have 4 different syllables, takadimi. Whereas in the Tik-A Tee method, Tik-A, Tik-A. We're just learning the Tik-A and doing it again to create that second grouping to make 4 16th notes. So it's very helpful for students. They have the plosive T, they have the plosive K, and it's a little bit more simple to divide one quarter note into Tik-A, 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 Tik-A. So that's how I arrived at Tik-A Tik-A for 16th notes in the Tik-A Tee method. Let's now talk a little bit about what 16th notes look like in music notation. Last week, we talked about the anatomy of a note, or the names of the parts of a note as they appear in the staff. So let's recap. We have the note head, which tells us the pitch class that a note is to be performed on. We have the stem, which can extend either up or down from the note head. And we have the beam, which connects our notes and creates groupings. And the one thing that you'll notice right away is that there are 2 beams for 16th notes. This is what differentiates 16th notes from 8th notes. 8th notes have a single beam, and 16th notes have 2 beams. Let's look at the bottom of the page at this simple diagram. We have 4 16th notes, and we can see that these 4 notes are connected by 2 beams, thereby creating our 16th notes. Tik-A, 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 Tik-A. Those 4 16th notes are equal to 2 eighth notes, both of which take up 1 beat in 4/4 time. And we notice that our eighth notes have a single beam that connect these 2 notes. This is our paired eighth note grouping. T, 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 T. And we learned last week that 2 eighth notes is equal to 1 quarter note is equal to 1 quarter rest. So all of the mini illustrations in this diagram are equal to 1 beat in 4/4 time. Knowing that, And seeing that we have 4 little mini illustrations, what if we perform these consecutively like it was a 4/4 measure? For example, what if this was beat 1, this was beat 2, this was beat 3, and this rest was beat 4? What would that sound like? Well, let's perform it right now. It would sound like this. Tik-A Tik-A Tee Ta, and then a rest on beat 4. Sung Tik-A Tik-A Tee Ta. Next measure. Okay, so hopefully that helps you better understand that 4 16th notes is equal to 2 8th notes is equal to 1 quarter note or 1 quarter rest. And now we're ready to dive into some exercises and practice everything we just learned. Okay, so here we are in week 3 at the first exercise. As I said in week 2, it's really important that you go check out week 1, where I go over in some great detail how to use the instructions and suggestions that precede each of the group of exercises in each week or chapter of my book. You can, of course, pause the video now and go through them on your own. The big takeaways are that number 1, you study the exercise first for a bit. Number 2, you use a metronome. And number 3, that you sing the exercises. As we look at exercise 3A, one of the first things we notice is that all of the verbiage from the Tik-A Tee method is included in this exercise. This is intended to be helpful for the student to better compartmentalize and subdivide the measures, but also how to better connect the words to the rhythms. In other words, all quarter notes and longer are ta, all paired eighth notes are TT, and all groupings of 4 16th notes are Tik-A Tik-A. When you're first looking at an exercise and studying it for 10, 20, 30 seconds, before you actually have to perform it, there are a variety of things you could be looking for in that exercise to help you best prep for that performance. Now, this is really dependent upon where you are in your musical journey of reading rhythms and reading music notation. It's going to be different for everyone. For example, last week in week 2, I went into one of the exercises and I wanted to know where all the silence was happening. So I honed in on that exercise and I circled all of the rests. That was helpful for me. I do have 2 suggestions. Suggestion number 1, realize what the concept for the week or the chapter that you're in is. For example, we're in week 3. Our concept is 16th notes, and they're always going to be grouped together in 4. So I would go in and I would look at this exercise 3A and try to find all of the 16th notes. That would be helpful if I was just learning about 16th notes. The second suggestion is to glance over an exercise and find anything that might look complicated for you and your level and where you're at. If it looks complicated, then pause on that, try to figure that out before you perform the exercise. These techniques will prove to be very helpful as you do these exercises throughout the book and before you take that first attempt at sight reading these rhythms. Now, what I'm going to do for exercise 3A is I'm going to write the beats in above the measures or below the measures to represent where the metronome will be clicking. This will be helpful so that you can see the compartmentalization and subdivision of all of these notes. As you can see, there's a lot more ink on the page here in week 3 because there's a lot more notes happening in each measure. So knowing where the metronome will be clicking will prove to be very helpful. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to take a pen here and I'm going to write in where the metronome will be clicking. So there's beat 1. We know a half note gets 2 beats. This quarter note comes in on beat 3. These eighth notes come in on beat 4. So I'm going to proceed and write the rest of the beats, aligning them appropriately. So beats 2 and 4 will have the 16th note groupings. Beat 4 will be a rest in the 3rd measure. I've got more 16th notes on beat 3 in the 4th measure. Now for the second line, I'm going to write it beneath just because there's more room. I've got 2 half notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, ta, ti, 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 ti. Now I've got 2 beats of 16th notes. Beat 1 and beat 2 will be 16th notes. Beat 3 will be a quarter note, and beat 4 a quarter rest. Then I ended off with a ta, ti, ti, ta for 2 beats. And I'm going to hold this note out full value, right? With an invisible beat 1 cutoff right there. So writing in the beats is definitely, if you have the book, this is definitely something you could be doing with each exercise. And it's really helpful to know where the click or where the beats are happening versus where all these rhythms are happening. It helps you better connect the verbiage to the rhythms as well. And with that, now it's actually time to perform this exercise. So let's go. In a moment, I'm going to give you the starting pitch and the count off for exercise 3A, and we'll perform it together. But before we do that, I just want to talk about the metronome real quick. So 2 weeks ago for week 1, I used my Boss DB90. Old school, super reliable metronome. I love it. Last week, I used Tonal Energy, the app on my phone, but I wasn't crazy about the click sound, and there were some syncing issues. So I worked on that this week, and I also changed the sound. So I just wanted to show you how to change the sound in Tonal Energy and just the functionality of the metronome and how great Tonal Energy is. And again, I don't work for them, and I'm not sponsored by them, but so be it. Here it is. This is Tonal Energy. You can see the full thing on your screen now. Here it is. If you want to change your sound, your click sound, off to the right-hand side, you'll see an illustration of 2 claves, and it says the word sound. You click on that, and you can scroll up and down through all these different sounds for your click. This week, I've chosen Drum Jam 808, so we'll see how that one works. But one thing that is really cool, if you scroll all the way down, you can actually have a person counting the beats for you. And I thought this would be great for anybody just beginning their rhythm journey here and reading music to know where they are in each measure by somebody actually saying 1, 2, 3, 4 throughout the entire exercise. You'll know exactly where you are in the measure. You'll know exactly when the new measure starts, so forth and so on. So here I've chosen a volume of -6 dB, and I've chosen a female voice. I just want to show you what that sounds like. So here's the metronome plus the voice counting.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So that's pretty cool. And if I wanted to change the female voice and I wanted to go to a male voice, I could just click down here, click done, and here's what it sounds like.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And you can hear, no matter which voice you use, there's still a little bit of an accent on beat 1, which is really helpful. So again, Tonal Energy, great app. You've got the tuner here that gives you the smiley face when you're in tune. You've got the sound wheel so you can give pitches to people, which is awesome. You've got the waveform so you can see exactly what your sound waves look like, and you have the metronome with all of this functionality. I'm going to actually remove the voice for our exercise, so I'm going to take the voice off, but you can see here you've got the voice only, voice plus metronome, and voice off. And I'm just going to stick with this sound right here, which is the Drum Jam 808. Let's see what that sounds like. So that's what we're going to use for this exercise right now. So here is your tempo. This week we're doing 70 beats per minute, or the quarter note equals 70. There's our tempo. Here's our pitch. La, la, la. I'm going to count this off, and then we're off to the races singing it together. So hum that note and be ready. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, ta, tee, tee, ta, Tik-A Tik-A ta, Tik-A Tik-A ta, tee, tee, ta. Tee, tee, ta, Tik-A Tik-A ta, ta, ta. Ta, ta, tee, 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 Tik-A 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 ta. Ta, tee, tee, ta. So let's see how we did. All right, and of course, the way we check our accuracy is by referring to the MP3 that accompanies exercise 3A. I'll leave links on this page so you can access all of the MP3s. They are, again, free to the world, whether or not you buy the book. Now, when you listen to the MP3, you really have one of 3 options. You can listen to the MP3 and just follow along in the exercise, checking for your own accuracy. Number 2, you can sing along with the exercise as the MP3 is playing. Or number 3, you can break out your instrument and perform the rhythm on your instrument while the MP3 is playing. So I'm going to press play on exercise 3A. One, 2, 3, 4. Ta, ta, tee, tee, ta, Tik-A Tik-A ta, Tik-A Tik-A ta, tee, tee, ta. Tee, tee, ta, Tik-A Tik-A ta, ta, ta. Ta, ta, tee, 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 Tik-A 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 ta. ta, tee, tee, ta. So there you go. That was exercise 3A and the MP3. So hopefully this helps you better understand if you were accurate. Now, once you do all this and you're feeling pretty confident, if you haven't done it on your instrument, now is the time. Okay, so I'm going to play exercise 3A on the B-flat clarinet. I'm going to be given a G concert, but because this is a transposing instrument, I'll be starting on an A. Another thing that I'm going to do that'll help add some creativity and some fun to it is I'm going to go up the major scale with each new measure. So because there's 8 measures in this exercise, I can start on the root and I can end on the root and play a scale in between, which is great. Do a minor scale, major scale, play a mode, whatever you want to do, be creative. It helps bring musicianship and musicality to these rhythmic exercises. Also, I'm going to be using the metronome and the count-off for my MP3s, so if you listen to those, you'll certainly recognize the pitch that's given and the count-off. I hope that you'll join me by either singing or playing your instrument. Here we go, exercise 3A. One, two, three, four. Let's look at exercise 3B. Now would be a good time for you to pause the video, take 10, 20, 30 seconds to review this exercise using the techniques that we discussed earlier in this video before having to perform it. In the meantime, and moving forward, I'm going to talk about a few things that I noticed in this exercise, and then I'm going to write the beats like I did for exercise 3A. One thing that I notice in this exercise happens right in the first measure. You'll see that on beats 3 and 4, following the half note, there's a grouping of 4 notes, but they're connected by a single beam. These are eighth notes. 2 beams are 16th notes. 1 beam is an eighth note. So this grouping right here of these 4 notes are actually eighth notes, not 16th notes. And that can be confusing, but I want you to look at it as if there were 2 paired eighth notes like this. So that measure would just be ta, tee, 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 tee. So you can have 4 eighth notes beamed together, and we'll get into the technicalities of that and subdividing measures and invisible bar lines and all that stuff later. But for now, just know that we could actually have 4 eighth notes grouped together, and be careful, 1 beam is eighth notes, 2 beams are 16th notes, right? So I'm going to delete that, and now I'm going to put the beats above the measures and just see what I notice. So I've got my half note, beat 1 and 2. We just talked about our eighth notes, T, 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 ta. Rest on beat 3, Tik-A Tik-A on beat 4, ta, T, T, ta. Quarter note, 16th notes on beat 2, beats 3 and 4 will be this half note here, and I love this look ahead. It really helps me know that while I'm singing the half note, I should be looking ahead at what's coming up next, which is a quarter note, eighth note, quarter note. Okay, so ta, ta, we have 16th notes, Tik-A Tik-A ta. Then we've got a whole note that takes up the full measure, all 4 beats. Ta, ti, ti, Tik-A Tik-A ta. So as I'm going through this and counting the beats and aligning the beats properly with the measures and the rhythms, this really helps me actually study the exercise. So I hope that this was helpful. I'll leave these numbers up here as we perform right now. All right, so here is your metronome. We're still at 70. Here is your pitch. I'm going to count this off and we're going to perform this together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, tee, 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 ta. Tik-A Tik-A Tee Tee ta ta, Tik-A Tik-A ta tee tee ta ta, Tik-A Tik-A ta tee tee, Tik-A Tik-A ta. Let's go see if we got it right. Here we are again, back at the MP3s. Again, one of three options. Listen to it and follow along with the exercise, sing it, or perform it on your instrument. Here is exercise 3B. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta tee 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 ta. Tik-A Tik-A ta tee tee ta ta. Tik-A Tik-A ta ta tee tee ta ta. Tik-A Tik-A ta tee tee, Tik-A Tik-A ta. Okay, so again, if you got it right, if you really grasp the concept, now would be the time, if you haven't done so already, to perform it on your instrument. One, 2, 3, 4. Ta tee 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 ta. Tik-A Tik-A ta tee tee ta ta. Tik-A Tik-A ta ta tee tee ta ta. Tik-A Tik-A ta tee tee, Tik-A Tik-A ta. All right, before we close out this video, I do want to make sure you all know that there are definitely more than just 2 exercises in every week or chapter of my book. If you want access to over 346 of these exercises, go out and check out the book. Plus, you'll get these pro tips that happen every single week. You'll get diagrams, you'll get illustrations, you'll get clear and concise explanations of all of these rhythmic concepts. So please, go check it out. Thank you again for joining me on this journey as we complete week 3. I hope you had some fun. I hope you learned a little bit about 16th notes, and I definitely hope you joined me either by singing and or playing your instrument along with those 2 exercises. Please check out my book, Rhythmic Sight-Reading, the Tik-A Tee Method. It is available at my website, roncastonguay.com, as well as Amazon and at jwpepper.com. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell so you get the latest video. Leave a comment if you're inclined. I will definitely reply to all comments, and I'm super excited to see you next week.